Hollis lifted the rifle with 2 fingers like it was garbage. Rust flaked onto the counter. The wood stock split down the middle. Metal corroded beyond recognition. "Ma'am, this is scrap metal. Probably blow up in your hands if you even tried to fire it." The customers laughed. The old woman didn't move. "You might want to check the serial number first." Hollis smirked. He'd been identifying firearms since he was 16. He knew junk when he saw it. But he grabbed the brass brush anyway, started scrubbing the receiver, just to humor her. Numbers appeared under the corrosion. His hand slowed. The prefix was wrong, alphanumeric, ending in -X. He pulled out his phone, searched the database. Restricted access. The woman watched him with unnaturally calm eyes. "That serial will shock you," she said quietly, "because officially, that rifle was never supposed to exist, and neither was I." Hollis looked up, really looked at her this time. Who the hell was she? From which city in the world are you watching this video today? Drop your location in the comments below. If you want stories about people history tried to erase, hit subscribe. You won't regret it. Because when Hollis finally read that full serial number, 2 federal agents showed up at his door within hours. And what the old woman told them made one of them salute her on the spot. What did that rifle prove she'd done? Dawn broke over the hills of eastern Tennessee at 6:12. The sky bled pink and orange through the mist that clung to the valley like smoke. Inside Mercer & Sons Firearms, the fluorescent lights flickered on at 5:47, 13 minutes before the sign on the door would flip to open. Hollis moved through the shop with territorial confidence. He was 26, lean from good metabolism rather than discipline, and carried himself like someone who had never been told he was wrong about anything that mattered. The gun shop smelled the way it always did in the early morning. Hop's number 9 solvent. Gun oil with that specific petroleum sweetness. Old wood and metal polish and the faint chemical bite of bluing compound. He poured coffee from the pot he had started before unlocking the back door. Black, no sugar. Drank it while standing at the front counter, scrolling through the overnight security footage on the tablet mounted beside the register. Nothing. Never was. The shop sat on a rural highway 20 minutes outside Knoxville, surrounded by farmland and forest. Break-ins were rare. Hollis checked anyway because that was the routine. 643 days working in this shop. Same routine every morning. Coffee, security check, wipe down the display cases. The cases held handguns arranged by era and manufacturer. Colt 1911s, Browning high powers, a nickel-plated Smith & Wesson Model 29 that had been there longer than Hollis had been alive. He cleaned the glass in horizontal strokes, never circular. Left to right, top to bottom. His father had told him once that circular motions left streaks. Hollis could not remember if that was true, but the habit stuck. He wore a vintage Gunsmith's apron, brown leather worn soft at the edges. It had belonged to his grandfather, though Hollis had never met the man. Cancer took him in '94, 3 years before Hollis was born. The apron fit like inheritance was supposed to, like proof of belonging. At 6:30, Hollis walked to the back corner of the shop, where a locked filing cabinet sat against the wall. Olive drab metal, military surplus style, covered in a fine layer of dust that never seemed to accumulate beyond a certain point. The label across the front drawer read Estate Archive, pre-1980, in faded typewriter letters. He had asked his father about it once, years ago. His father said it was old inventory records from when his grandfather ran the place. Nothing important. The cabinet stayed locked. Hollis ran his hand across the top of it, felt dust on his fingertips, wiped them on his jeans. Above the workbench near the back, an old rotary phone hung on the wall. Cream-colored plastic, gone yellow with age. The cord coiled down like a sleeping snake. In 643 days, Hollis had never heard it ring. He did not know if it still worked. It seemed like the kind of thing that should be thrown away, but his father told him to leave it, so it stayed. A photograph sat tucked behind the cash register, wedged between the counter and the credit card reader. Small, maybe 4 by 6 inches. The image was blurry, faded to sepia tones. Showed a group of people in military uniforms standing beside wooden crates in what looked like a jungle clearing. 7 figures total. Their faces were indistinct, washed out by sun glare or age or both. Hollis had looked at it 1,000 times and could never make out details. He did not know who they were. Another relic his father told him to leave alone. At 7, the first customer arrived. Dale Pritchard, a regular who brought in a Remington 700 every 6 weeks like clockwork to have the scope recalibrated. Dale was 60-something, retired from something he never specified, and talked too much about things that did not matter. Hollis mounted the rifle in the vise on the workbench, checked the bore, adjusted the windage. Dale leaned against the counter and drank the coffee Hollis offered him out of politeness rather than genuine hospitality. "Heard somebody's been asking around town about old military surplus," Dale said. "Government-looking types. Suits and wrong shoes. Weird for around here." Hollis kept his eyes on the scope adjustment. "Collectors do that." "Not like this," Dale continued. "These boys had that federal look. You know the type. Too clean. Too polite. Asking questions about weapons from the 70s and 80s. Specifically asking if anyone still had original documentation." Hollis's hands paused for half a second, wrench hovering over the turret cap. Then he continued the adjustment. 2 clicks left. "Probably ATF doing some audit. Happens sometimes." Dale shrugged. "Maybe. Just thought it was strange." The conversation moved on. Dale picked up his rifle at 7:42, paid in cash, left. Hollis returned to the workbench, stood there for a moment looking at nothing in particular. Then he walked back to the filing cabinet in the corner and stared at it for 10 seconds before returning to the counter. At 9:15, a young couple came in looking for a carry pistol for the woman. Hollis showed them 3 options: Glock 43, Smith & Wesson Shield, SIG P365. Explained the differences in capacity and recoil and ease of use. The woman chose the Glock. Standard choice. Hollis processed the background check and sent them on their way with a box of 9mm and a recommendation for the range 2 towns over. At 10:30, Webb Calhoun wandered in. Webb was 71, a collector who specialized in Civil War-era firearms and had more money than sense. He spent half his retirement driving around to gun shows and estate sales looking for rare pieces. He came into Hollis's shop twice a week to talk about things he had found or things he wanted to find. Hollis tolerated him because Webb bought enough to justify the patience required. At 11:18, the bell above the door chimed. Hollis looked up from the Colt Python he was cleaning, saw an elderly woman step inside. She moved slowly, not with the frailty of age, but with deliberate care, like someone conserving energy. She wore a canvas jacket that had seen better decades, faded jeans, work boots caked with red clay. Her hair was gray, pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her face was lined but not soft, sharp cheekbones, eyes that tracked the room in a way that felt purposeful. She carried something wrapped in an old wool blanket, olive drab, military issue color. Hollis barely glanced at her. Webb was talking about a Springfield trapdoor rifle he had seen at an estate sale in Chattanooga. The woman walked to the counter and stopped. Did not say anything. Just stood there holding the bundle. Hollis kept cleaning the python. "You need help finding something?" The woman did not answer immediately. She placed the bundle on the counter with both hands. The motion was controlled. No drop, no thump. A measured descent like someone setting down something fragile or dangerous. She unwrapped it slowly. The rifle appeared inch by inch. Rust covered every visible surface. The metal was dark, oxidized to the point of looking black in places. The barrel showed pitting and corrosion. The wood stock was split lengthwise, a crack running from the butt plate to the forestock. The grain was swollen and warped from moisture exposure. It looked like something pulled from a swamp or a flooded basement. Hollis set down the python, looked at the rifle, looked at the woman. He smiled. Not unkindly, but the way someone smiles at a well-meaning mistake. "Ma'am, I appreciate you bringing this in, but this thing is scrap metal. Honestly, not even safe to display. Wood split, metal's compromised. You tried to fire this, it would probably blow up in your hands." From the far aisle, Webb chuckled. "Sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen." Hollis picked up the rifle by the barrel with 2 fingers, holding it away from his body like something unpleasant. The metal felt rough under his fingers. Flakes of rust dusted the counter. "I can dispose of it for you if you want," Hollis said. "But there's no value here. 0. The woman said nothing. She watched him with eyes that did not blink as often as they should. Hollis set the rifle down with a dull thunk. The sound echoed in the shop. 2 other customers had stopped browsing to watch. The woman's voice emerged quiet, barely above a whisper. It did not match the roughness of her appearance. "You might want to check the serial number before you throw it away." Hollis laughed. Genuine amusement. "Ma'am, trust me. I've been doing this since I was 16. I know junk when I see it." She did not move, did not smile, did not break eye contact. "The serial number," she repeated. "Just check it." The shop had gone quiet. Webb had stopped talking. The 2 customers near the shotgun rack were watching now. Hollis sighed. He grabbed a brass brush from the workbench and a bottle of Hop's solvent. Poured a small amount onto a rag. "Fine. Let's see what we've got here." He began scrubbing the receiver where the serial number would be stamped. The brush made a scratching sound against the oxidized metal. Black and rust-red flakes scattered across the counter like tiny insects. The solvent cut through the corrosion slowly. Numbers began to appear. Hollis scrubbed harder. More numbers emerged from beneath the rust. His hand slowed. The serial was not standard. The prefix was wrong. Alphanumeric instead of pure numeric. The format did not match civilian production models. It ended with a dash and a letter. -X. Hollis stopped scrubbing, stared at the numbers. GX1847-X. He had never seen a serial number formatted like that. Webb leaned over the counter. "What'd you find?" Hollis did not answer. He pulled his phone from his pocket, opened the firearms database application he used for appraisals, entered the serial number. The app searched for 3 seconds. Search results. No match. He tried a different database. Military Surplus Registry. Search results. Restricted access. What the hell? Hollis set the phone down, walked to the back office without saying anything. The office was small, more of a closet with a desk. Shelves lined the walls, packed with reference books and catalogs and binders full of documentation. He pulled down a thick volume from the second shelf. United States Military Small Arms Serial Numbers, 1945 to 1985. Red cover, edges worn from use. He flipped through the pages, found the section on serial number formatting, scanned the rows of text. Near the bottom of page 347, a footnote in small print. Serial designations ending in -X, -Y, or -Z were reserved for experimental or classified procurement programs. Records sealed under National Security Directive 47B. Contact DoD Historical Archives for Freedom of Information Act requests. Hollis read it twice. He returned to the counter. The woman had not moved. She stood in the exact same position, hands resting on the counter, watching him with that unnerving stillness. Hollis picked up the rifle again, this time with care. He examined it differently now. Professional eyes instead of dismissive ones. "Where did you get this?" His tone had changed entirely. "It was issued to me." Webb laughed. "Issued? Lady, women weren't even allowed in combat units back then." The woman turned her head slowly toward Webb. She said nothing. The silence that followed was heavier than any response could have been. Hollis ignored the exchange. He was looking at the rifle now, really looking. He grabbed a magnifying glass from the workbench, examined the barrel threading. Not factory standard, custom work, high precision machining. He checked the trigger assembly, match grade components, adjusted for competition level accuracy. He ran his fingers along the bolt, felt unusual wear patterns, consistent with suppressor use. He looked at the stock. Beneath the split wood and water damage, faint engravings were visible. Letters scratched by hand into the wood, then deliberately scratched over, obscured but not entirely erased. Hollis pulled out a set of calipers from the tool drawer, measured the chamber dimensions, checked the barrel twist rate. "This was built for long-range precision," Hollis said quietly. "Match barrel, custom load specifications. This wasn't infantry issue. This was specialized." He trailed off. The woman finished his sentence. "Sniper platform. Operation Brushfire. 1973 to 1977. Laos and Cambodia." Every person in the shop stopped moving. The two customers froze mid-step. Webb's mouth hung open slightly. Hollis stared at her. "Officially," the woman continued, her voice flat and emotionless, "we were never there." Hollis felt his pulse in his temples. Brushfire was covert, counterinsurgency. That program's still classified. "Most of it is," she agreed. "Most of us are too, dead or erased." As she spoke, small details emerged that Hollis had not noticed before. The way she stood, weight balanced evenly on both feet, shoulders squared. When a car backfired outside on the highway, her head turned toward the sound with mechanical precision, assessed the direction, dismissed it, returned to neutral. She used language that felt out of place: suppressed fire mission, windage calculation, cold bore zero. Technical terminology that did not belong in the mouth of an elderly woman in a rural gun shop. Webb found his voice. "Who are you?" "You can call me Ennis. Not my name is, not I am. You can call me." "Ennis what?" Hollis asked. "Just Ennis." Hollis pushed the rifle back across the counter toward her. Look, I don't know what this is, but if this is connected to classified operations, I legally can't work on it without proper authorization. I can't even appraise it. I'm not asking you to work on it, Ennis said. I'm asking you what it's worth. Hollis laughed, nervous now. Worth? If this is authentic? If it's one of maybe a dozen surviving examples from a ghost program? Collectors would pay 6 figures, maybe more. Museums would want it. Then sell it for me. Webb stepped closer. Why now? Why bring it in after all these years? Ennis looked at him directly for the first time. Her eyes were pale gray, almost colorless. Because all these years, nobody was looking for it. Now someone is. As she said this, her right hand moved unconsciously to her left forearm, touched it through the fabric of her jacket sleeve. A brief contact, then away. The motion lasted less than a second. Hollis's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen. Text message from an unknown number. Who submitted serial inquiry GX1847-X at 11:34 a.m.? Reply ASAP. Hollis felt cold water run down his spine. He picked up the phone, read the message again, looked at Ennis. She was watching him. No surprise on her face, no concern. He showed her the screen. She read it. Her expression did not change. You should close early today, she said quietly, and maybe don't answer that. Webb looked between them. What is going on? Hollis did not know how to answer that. He stared at the text message, at the rifle, at the woman who called herself Ennis. His hands were shaking slightly. He pressed them flat against the counter to stop the tremor. The phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This is a national security matter. Provide contact information for individual who presented firearm serial GX1847X. Compliance is not optional. Hollis set the phone down like it had become hot to the touch. Ennis remained perfectly still. She had not moved since placing the rifle on the counter, had not shifted her weight, had not looked away. The bell above the door chimed. Hollis looked up. 2 customers were leaving. Their faces showed confusion and discomfort. They left quickly, without saying goodbye. Webb was still standing there, staring at Ennis like he was trying to solve a puzzle written in a language he did not speak. The shop felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer, the air thicker. Hollis picked up the rifle one more time, turned it over in his hands, looked at the serial number now fully visible beneath the clean section of metal. GX1847-X. 8 characters that apparently meant something to people who operated in basements of buildings that did not appear on maps. He set it down gently. You're not selling this, are you? He said. Not a question. No. Well, then why bring it here? Ennis smiled, thin, no warmth. Because someone needed to verify what it was. Someone who would document it. Someone who would search databases and trigger alarms. Someone who would create a record that this rifle exists and that I'm still alive. You wanted them to know. I wanted witnesses, Ennis corrected. When they come, and they will come, I needed people who could verify what happened here, what you saw, what you confirmed. The phone buzzed a 3rd time. Hollis did not pick it up. He could see the message preview on the lock screen. Federal agents en route to your location. Do not leave premises. Do not destroy evidence. Await arrival. He looked at Ennis. They're coming here. I know. When? Soon. Webb backed away from the counter. I think I should go. No, Ennis said. The word was not loud, but it carried weight. You should stay. You're a witness too. Webb froze. Hollis felt his heart rate climbing. This is insane. I run a gun shop. I appraise firearms. I don't get involved in whatever this is. You got involved the moment you cleaned that serial number, Ennis said. There's no uninvolving yourself now. Outside, the sound of tires on gravel, a vehicle pulling into the parking lot. Hollis looked through the front window. Black SUV, tinted windows, government plates. They're here, he said. Ennis did not turn to look. She kept her eyes on Hollis. When they ask you questions, tell them the truth. What you saw, what you verified, nothing more. What are they going to do to you? That depends on how smart they are. The vehicle doors opened. Two men stepped out, mid-40s, athletic builds, wearing civilian clothes that somehow screamed federal agent. Wrong shoes, wrong watches, wrong way of scanning the environment. They walked toward the shop entrance. Hollis could not move, could not think. His mind had gone blank except for one repeating thought. What have I gotten into? The bell above the door chimed. The two men entered. They moved like operators, controlled, aware, eyes sweeping the shop in systematic patterns. The first man smiled, pleasant, professional. Afternoon. We're looking for someone who might have inquired about a specific serial number today. Hollis opened his mouth. No sound came out. The second man's gaze landed on the rifle lying on the counter. His expression flickered, recognition, then careful neutrality. That's interesting hardware, the second man said. Mind if I ask where you got it? Ennis stood from where she had been leaning against the wall. She moved slowly, deliberately, every motion controlled. Both men turned toward her, saw an elderly woman in canvas and denim, dismissed her immediately, looked back at Hollis. Sir, we're going to need you to hand over any documentation related to that firearm and provide contact information for whoever brought it in. You're not taking anything, Ennis said. Her voice was quiet, but different now. There was command underneath, authority that did not ask permission. The first man barely glanced at her. Ma'am, this doesn't concern you. Please step outside. GX1847X, Ennis said, issued October 1973. Returned February 1977. That rifle has been in my possession for 49 years. You want documentation? I've got 49 years of it. The second man stopped moving. He turned to look at her. Really look this time. His eyes scanned her face, her posture, the way she held herself. Something changed in his expression. What was your designation? He asked carefully. Crosswind 7. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The second man's hand moved reflexively, started to rise toward his head in what looked like the beginning of a salute. He caught himself halfway, lowered it slowly. Jesus Christ, he whispered. What do you think will happen next? Drop a comment and let us know. And if stories about people who were erased from history speak to you, subscribe. There's more coming. The second agent stood perfectly still. His eyes remained locked on Ennis. 30 seconds passed in complete silence. Webb broke first. What the hell is going on? The first agent's face had gone pale. He pulled out his phone. Sir, we need to make a call. Right now. The second agent did not move, did not break eye contact with Ennis. They told us you were dead. Training accident in '76. That's what the file said. I've read your file. Ennis smiled. Thin. Humorless. That's what the file was supposed to say. Easier to bury a program if all the operators are buried too. Hollis found his voice. What program? What are you talking about? The second agent finally looked away from Ennis, turned to Hollis. Operation Brushfire. Covert sniper operations in Laos and Cambodia during the final years of Vietnam involvement. Officially never happened. Personnel records sealed or destroyed. Most destroyed, Ennis corrected. Some of us just disappeared. The first agent was speaking rapidly into his phone now. Stepped toward the back of the shop for privacy. His voice carried anyway. Yes, sir. Crosswind 7. Alive. Confirmed. The rifle is here. Serial authenticated. Yes, sir. I'm looking at her right now. Webb looked between Ennis and the agents. His mouth opened and closed twice before words came out. You're saying she was a sniper? For the government? The second agent did not answer Webb. He was still watching Ennis like she might vanish if he looked away. How is this possible? We have documentation of your death, witnesses, a burial record. Ennis rolled up her left sleeve, slowly, deliberately. A scar became visible, long and jagged, ran from her wrist almost to her elbow. Old surgical scar, the kind left by shrapnel removal. The tissue was raised and discolored. Decades of healing had faded it, but not erased it. Shrapnel, Ennis said. Cambodian border, February 12, 1977. Helicopter extraction under fire. Lost 2 teammates that day. Killed 11 hostiles at 900 meters with iron sights because the scope was shattered. She pointed at the rifle on the counter. That barrel, that rifle, that mission. The second agent's hands were trembling slightly. You're on the memorial wall, Building C, Langley. I've walked past your name 100 times. Probably still misspelled, Ennis said flatly. The first agent returned, ended his call, looked at his partner with an expression that mixed confusion and something close to fear. They want us to bring her in. Secure location. Immediate debriefing. Ennis let her sleeve fall back down, covered the scar. No. The first agent blinked. Excuse me? I didn't surface after 50 years to get disappeared again, Ennis said. Her voice remained quiet but carried absolute authority now. That rifle exists. The serial is documented. Multiple witnesses in this room. If I vanish, questions get asked. So here's what happens instead. You leave. I keep the rifle. And when your superiors figure out they can't erase me twice, they can decide whether they want the story told quietly or loudly. The second agent looked at his partner. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Years of working together compressed into a glance. The second agent turned back to Ennis. This time his hand completed the motion it had started earlier. Full military salute. Crisp. Held. Ennis did not return it, just nodded once. The agents moved toward the door. At the threshold, the second agent paused, looked back. For what it's worth, ma'am, thank you for your service, even if nobody was supposed to know about it. The door closed behind them. Nobody moved. The shop had become a vacuum. Sound felt wrong. Time felt suspended. Webb exhaled, long and shaky. That just happened. That actually just happened. Hollis could not speak. His mind was trying to process information that did not fit into any framework he understood. The woman standing in his shop had been dead for nearly 50 years. Except she was not dead. She was here. and federal agents had just saluted her. Ennis walked to the workbench, began gathering the rifle parts, wrapped them back in the wool blanket with careful, practiced movements. "I lied earlier," she said. "I'm not selling it. Just needed someone to verify what it was. Now it's verified." "Why?" Hollis's voice cracked. "Why now? Why after all this time?" Ennis stopped wrapping, stood still for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried weight that had not been there before. "Because they're dying. The men who ran brush fire, the generals who signed the orders, the intelligence officers who planned the missions. They're old now, dying, taking the truth with them. I wanted someone to know that before the last of them goes, there's still one of us left who remembers." Webb stepped closer. "Were you really? Did you really do what you said?" Ennis picked up the wrapped rifle, held it against her chest like something precious. 9 confirmed kills, 11 probable. All enemy combatants, all in defense of teammates who never made it home. She touched the rifle through the blanket. "This was my service. Nobody asked if I belonged there. The enemy sure as hell knew I did." She walked toward the door. The bell chimed as she opened it. Hollis found himself moving. "Wait!" Ennis stopped, did not turn around. "What happens now?" "That depends on how many people believe you," Ennis said, "and how loud you're willing to tell the story." She left. The door closed. The bell chimed again. Hollis and Webb stood in silence, staring at the empty doorway. On the workbench, something caught the light. Hollis walked over, found a single brass casing sitting where the rifle had been. She must have left it there while wrapping the weapon. He picked it up, turned it over in his fingers. Stamped on the base, 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO, 1974. Physical proof, tangible evidence, a relic from a war that officially never happened. Webb moved beside him, looked at the casing. "You believe her?" Hollis set the casing down gently. "Yeah, I do." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." His phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Do not discuss this incident with anyone. National security protocols in effect. Violation will result in federal prosecution." Hollis showed it to Webb. Webb read it, laughed. Nervous and high-pitched. "They're threatening you now." "Apparently." "You going to listen?" Hollis looked at the brass casing, at the photograph tucked behind the register, at the locked filing cabinet in the corner that suddenly seemed important in a way it had not been an hour ago. "I don't know," he said again. Webb left 20 minutes later, told Hollis he needed a drink, maybe several drinks, maybe an entire bottle. Hollis locked the door after him, flipped the sign to closed even though it was only 1 in the afternoon. He stood in the empty shop. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of gun solvent and metal polish hung in the air like it always did. Everything looked the same. Nothing was the same. Hollis walked to the filing cabinet, stared at it. The lock was old, probably could be picked with the right tools. He had the tools. Grew up learning locks as part of gunsmith training, understanding mechanisms, how things fit together. He did not pick the lock. Instead, he opened the drawer beneath the cash register, found the spare key ring his father kept there, 7 keys. Most he recognized: building keys, gun safe keys, display case keys. One he did not recognize, small, brass. Looked like it fit a filing cabinet. Hollis walked to the cabinet, tried the key. It turned. The lock clicked. The drawer slid open. Inside were files, manila folders, dozens of them, organized by year, labels written in precise handwriting, deployment records, requisition orders, mission summaries. Hollis pulled out a folder at random, opened it. Weapons requisition form, dated April 1974. Requesting delivery of specialized ammunition. 7.62 NATO match grade. Suppressed load specifications. Delivery location listed as Firebase Hotel. Coordinates redacted. Authorization, signature, illegible, but stamped with a seal Hollis did not recognize. He pulled another folder. Mission debrief, August 1975. Target eliminated at long range. Positive identification confirmed. Team extraction successful. No casualties. Operator designation, Crosswind 7. Hollis set the folder down. His hands were shaking again. His grandfather's shop had not just been a gun shop. It had been a depot, a supply point for covert operations. His grandfather had been part of this, part of brush fire. The photograph behind the register. Hollis pulled it out, looked at it again with new understanding. 7 figures in uniform, standing beside wooden crates, jungle clearing, faces obscured. One figure slightly shorter than the others. Posture he now recognized. Ennis, 49 years ago, standing with her team. Hollis turned the photograph over, handwriting on the back, faded but legible. Crosswind Unit, April 1975, after Firebase Hotel resupply. May they all come home. They had not all come home. Hollis sat down at the counter, put his head in his hands, tried to process information that kept expanding beyond his ability to contain it. His phone rang. Actual call this time. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? Mr. Hollis, my name is Colonel Marcus Reeves, retired. I understand you had an encounter today that raised some questions. The voice was older, authoritative, military cadence even in retirement. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, Hollis replied. You're allowed to listen, Reeves said. The woman who visited your shop, she was part of a program that saved American lives. Operators who went places we couldn't officially go, did things we couldn't officially acknowledge. When the program ended, they were given a choice: disappear into new identities with full support, or face congressional hearings that would have destroyed them and exposed methods we still use today. Most chose to disappear, and now she's surfacing. Because we're dying, Reeves said. The men who know what really happened, what those operators sacrificed. We're old, cancer, heart disease, time. The truth dies with us if someone doesn't speak. Why me? Why bring the rifle to me? Because your grandfather ran supply operations for brush fire. Because your shop has documentation that proves the program existed. Because you're young enough to remember and tell the story after we're all gone. Hollis closed his eyes. What do you want from me? Tell the truth, Reeves said. When the time comes, when it's safe. Tell people what you verified today. That the rifle exists. That the cereal is real. That the woman who carried it is real. What if they don't believe me? They will. We're working on declassification. Partial, limited, but enough. Within a few months, some of Brushfire will be public record. When that happens, your testimony will matter. You'll be a witness to history. And if I refuse, then good people stay erased, Reeves said, and that would be a shame. The line went dead. Hollis sat motionless. The shop felt like it was pressing in on him. Too small, too quiet. He looked at the brass casing on the workbench, At the photograph. At the open filing cabinet full of secrets his father had told him were nothing important. His entire life had been built on a foundation of half-truths and comfortable lies. The gun shop was just a gun shop. His grandfather was just a businessman. The old rotary phone was just decoration. The filing cabinet was just old inventory records, all lies. Or not lies exactly, omissions. Things left unsaid because saying them would have shattered the illusion of normalcy. Hollis stood, walked to the rotary phone, stared at it. In 643 days it had never rung. Now it felt like it was about to, like the weight of expectation could will it into action. It did not ring. He walked back to the counter, picked up the brass casing, held it up to the light. The metal caught the fluorescent glow. The stamp numbers were crisp despite being 50 years old. Quality manufacturing, military precision. Someone had fired this round. Someone had loaded it into a rifle. Someone had aimed and calculated wind and distance and breathing and squeezed a trigger. Someone had watched through a scope as the bullet traveled 900 meters and ended a life. That someone was an elderly woman who moved slowly and spoke quietly and had been officially dead for 49 years. Hollis set the casing down, picked up his phone, opened the notes application, started typing. November 14th. Woman identifying herself as Ennis brought rifle to shop. Serial GX 1847X. Verified as experimental military sniper platform. Database search triggered federal response. 2 agents arrived. Confirmed woman's identity as Crosswind 7. Operator in classified program, Operation Brushfire. Woman displayed knowledge of military operations, specific technical terminology. Visible shrapnel scar consistent with combat injury. Agents rendered salute before departing. He saved the note, backed it up to cloud storage, sent a copy to his personal email. Documentation, evidence, testimony. The bell above the door chimed. Hollis looked up, heart racing, hand moving instinctively toward the pistol he kept under the register. An old man entered, 80s, moving with a cane, wore a faded army jacket. Patches on the shoulders Hollis did not recognize. The man looked around the shop. His eyes landed on the filing cabinet, on the photograph now sitting on the counter, on Hollis. "You're the grandson," the man said. Not a question. Yes. "Your grandfather was a good man, helped us when nobody else would." "Who are you?" The man moved closer, slowly, each step deliberate. "You had a visitor today, woman with a rifle." "How do you know that?" "Because I got a phone call an hour ago from someone who said Crosswind 7 was alive, and I had to see for myself if it was true." "You know her?" The old man nodded. "Served with her. February 77. I was the pilot who extracted her team, took ground fire on approach. She covered our landing from a ridge position. Never seen shooting like that. 11 targets, maybe 90 seconds. Perfect shots, every one." He looked at the photograph. "That's us, that picture. I'm third from the left." Hollis picked up the photograph, looked at the figure the man indicated, taller than the others, posture that suggested military bearing even through the blur. "You were there. 4 tours, the man said. Most of them places I can't talk about. Most with people whose names I'm not supposed to remember. But I remember her. Crosswind 7. Best operator I ever flew for." "Why are you here?" "Because if she's surfacing, it means something's happening. Declassification, maybe. Recognition. And if that's coming, there are things you should know. things about your grandfather, about what this place really was. The man reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, yellow with age, sealed. Your grandfather gave me this in '78. Told me if anything ever happened to him, if anyone ever started asking questions about brush fire, I should give this to whoever was running the shop. Said they'd know what to do with it. He handed the envelope to Hollis. The seal was still intact. Hollis's grandfather's handwriting on the front. To whoever carries the name forward. What's in it? The truth, the man said, or as much of it as could be written down. Names, dates, operations, things that prove what happened, things that prove those operators were real. Why didn't you open it? Because it wasn't addressed to me, and because some truths are dangerous. Your grandfather knew that. He made sure the information survived but stayed hidden until it was safe. The man turned toward the door, paused. Tell her I remember, he said. Tell Crosswind 7 that Pelican 3 remembers, and that I'm glad she made it home. He left. The bell chimed. The door closed. Hollis stood holding the envelope. The paper felt fragile, like it might disintegrate if he gripped too hard. He set it on the counter, stared at it. Around him the shop continued its existence. Fluorescent lights humming, gun oil smell. Afternoon sun slanting through the windows. Everything normal. Everything changed. Hollis picked up the envelope, broke the seal. Inside were photographs, documents, handwritten notes, a ledger listing weapons and ammunition with dates and destinations, maps with coordinates marked, after-action reports typed on ancient typewriters, and a letter, addressed to no one, signed by his grandfather. If you're reading this, someone finally asked the right questions. Someone finally started connecting pieces that were supposed to stay separated. Good. What we did was necessary. The operators who served in brush fire saved American lives. They operated in conditions that would break most people. They succeeded in missions that had no backup plans. And when the program ended, they were abandoned, given new names, new lives, told to forget. But some things shouldn't be forgotten. Some sacrifices deserve recognition, even if that recognition comes 50 years late. This shop was part of the supply chain. I provided weapons, ammunition, specialized equipment. I knew some of the operators, knew what they were doing even if I couldn't say it out loud. They were heroes, every one of them. If the time has come to tell their story, tell it right, tell it complete. Don't let politics or bureaucracy erase what they did. The envelope also contained a key, small, brass, different from the filing cabinet key. Attached to it was a note, safe deposit box, First National Bank, Knoxville, box 347. More documentation inside. Use when the time is right. Hollis set everything down, looked at the collection of evidence spread across the counter. Photographs of young soldiers in jungle fatigues, documents stamped classified and secret and eyes only, names he did not recognize but which carried weight anyway. His phone buzzed. Text message. Ennis. The pilot came to see you. Good, you're starting to understand. When they announce declassification, you'll be ready. Thank you for believing. Hollis typed a response. Why me? Why involve me in this? The reply came quickly. Because your grandfather trusted you with his legacy, even if you didn't know it yet. Because you verified the truth when it would have been easier to dismiss it. Because witnesses matter. And because I'm tired of being dead. Hollis sat down, exhaustion hitting him like physical weight. The day had started normally. Coffee at 6, security check, cleaning display cases. Now he was holding evidence of classified operations and communicating with a woman who had been erased from history. The rotary phone rang. Hollis jumped, stared at it. The sound was harsh, mechanical, wrong for the modern world. It rang again. He stood, walked to it, picked up the receiver. Hello? Static. Then a voice, male, older, formal. This line has been inactive for 38 years. If it's ringing now, it means someone activated the emergency protocol. Is this the grandson? Yes. Then listen carefully. Operation Brushfire is being partially declassified. Public announcement in 6 weeks. Congressional hearing in 8 weeks. We need witnesses who can verify the program existed. People with documentation. People with credibility. Your grandfather set this up decades ago. A fail-safe. If the operators ever needed validation, this phone would ring, and whoever answered would become their advocate. Who is this? Someone who owes them everything, the voice said. Be ready. When the hearing happens, you'll be called to testify. Bring the documentation. Bring the rifle serial verification. Bring the truth. The line went dead. Hollis set the receiver down. His hand was shaking. The shop had gone quiet again. That vacuum silence. Like the building itself was holding its breath. He looked at everything spread across the counter. Evidence, testimony, truth. 6 weeks until public announcement. 8 weeks until congressional hearing. 8 weeks to prepare to tell the world about people who had been ghosts for 50 years. Hollis picked up the photograph one more time, studied the faces he could not quite see. The team standing in a jungle clearing beside wooden crates. Young people doing dangerous things in places they were not supposed to be. One of them was still alive, still fighting, still demanding recognition. And now he was part of that fight whether he had chosen it or not. The brass casing caught the light again. Glinted, small and significant. A bullet fired 50 years ago that was still finding its target. Hollis closed the filing cabinet, gathered the documents from the envelope, locked them in the safe beneath the register. Tomorrow he would go to the bank, retrieve whatever was in box 347, start organizing evidence, start preparing testimony. Tonight he would sit in the quiet shop and try to understand how his entire understanding of his family history had been rewritten in 6 hours. The photograph went back on the wall, properly framed now, labeled, honored. The brass casing went into a small display case, mounted on velvet, caption card beneath it, 7.62 NATO, 1974. Operation Brushfire. Fired in defense of American lives. Carried home by Crosswind 7. Physical proof. Tangible evidence. Truth made visible. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe some truths deserve to be told no matter how long they've been buried, subscribe. There are more stories like this. More people who deserve to be remembered. 6 weeks passed like water through fingers. Hollis spent most of that time in the back office of Mercer and Sons Firearms, organizing documentation that had been hidden for decades. The safe deposit box at First National Bank had contained exactly what his grandfather's note promised. Mission reports, deployment records, photographs of operators whose faces were finally clear, names that matched designations. Crosswind 7 was listed as Lieutenant Sarah Ennis Carthage, 23 years old when she deployed, 27 when she vanished. The declassification announcement came on a Tuesday morning in January. Department of Defense press release. Brief, clinical. Operation Brushfire, acknowledged as a limited counterinsurgency program conducted between 1973 and 1977 in Southeast Asia. Personnel records partially unsealed. Congressional hearings scheduled for February 15th to review the program and consider formal recognition of operators. Hollis's phone rang within an hour of the announcement. Colonel Reeves again. Told him the hearing would require testimony from witnesses who could verify the program's existence independent of government records. Told him to prepare a statement. Told him to bring physical evidence. Told him this was important. Hollis said he would be there. 3 days later, a package arrived at the shop. No return address. Inside was a letter from Ennis, handwritten. Her script was precise, almost mechanical. Thank you for keeping faith. The rifle has been donated to the Smithsonian as promised. They are building an exhibit around it. Operation Brushfire, Shadows and Service. Opens in March. You should come to the dedication. You earned that. The letter included a photograph. Newer. Showed the rifle under museum lighting, cleaned and preserved, displayed on a stand with a placard that read GX 1847-X, sniper platform used in covert operations, 1973 to 1977, carried by Lieutenant Sarah Ennis Carthage, Crosswind-7. Her name, her real name, no longer hidden. Hollis placed the photograph on the wall beside the old picture of the Crosswind unit. 2 images separated by 50 years. Same woman. Different contexts. One hidden in shadow, one brought into light. The shop felt different now. Customers still came in looking for ammunition or asking about used rifles. But Hollis no longer dismissed things based on appearance alone. He asked questions. He listened. He examined everything carefully before making judgments. Webb came by twice a week. Never mentioned what happened that day in November. But he looked at the photographs on the wall, at the brass casing in its display case, at Hollis with something resembling respect. February 15th arrived cold and clear. Hollis drove to Washington the day before, checked into a hotel near Capitol Hill. Did not sleep well. Kept reviewing his prepared statement. Kept thinking about the weight of speaking truth that had been buried for half a century. The hearing room was smaller than he expected. Wood-paneled walls, rows of seats for observers, a long table at the front where 5 congresspeople sat, camera crews positioned along the sides, maybe 40 people in attendance. Hollis arrived early, sat in the back, watched people file in. Recognized some faces from the photographs. Old men now, 80s, some in wheelchairs, some walking with canes, all wearing pieces of their service. A jacket with unit patches, a cap with faded insignia. Visible pride mixed with decades of enforced silence. At 9:15, Ennis entered. She wore a simple dark suit, hair pulled back, walked with the same deliberate precision Hollis remembered. But something was different. Her shoulders were straighter, her head higher, like a weight had been lifted. She sat in the front row, did not look around, did not acknowledge anyone, just sat with her hands folded in her lap and waited. The hearing began at 9:30. The committee chair, a woman in her 60s, spoke first, acknowledged the difficulty of the subject matter, acknowledged the decades of silence, acknowledged the sacrifice of operators who served without recognition. Then she called the first witness, a retired general, 82 years old, moved to the witness table with help from an aide. testified about the strategic necessity of brush fire, the lives saved, the intelligence gathered, the missions accomplished. He spoke for 20 minutes. His voice was strong despite his age. When he finished, he looked directly at the front row, at Ennis, nodded once. The second witness was the pilot, the man who had visited Hollis's shop. Pelican 3 testified about extraction missions, about operators working in conditions that violated every safety protocol, about professionalism under fire, about a specific mission in February 1977 where an operator provided covering fire that saved his entire crew. He did not name Ennis, did not need to. Everyone in the room knew who he meant. The third witness was Hollis. He walked to the table, set down the folder containing his documentation, took the oath, sat. The committee chair asked him to state his name and relationship to Operation Brushfire. My name is Hollis Mercer. I own a firearms shop in Tennessee that was operated by my grandfather during the brushfire era. In November of last year, a woman brought a rifle to my shop for appraisal. The rifle bore serial number GX1847X. Database searches identified it as classified military hardware. The woman identified herself as the operator to whom the rifle was issued. Federal agents arrived within hours and confirmed her identity. I subsequently discovered documentation in my grandfather's files proving his shop served as a supply depot for brushfire operations. The chair asked if he brought physical evidence. Hollis opened the folder, removed the brass casing in its protective case, held it up. This casing was left by the operator, dated 1974, 7.62 NATO. Fired during a mission that is documented in the files my grandfather maintained. He set it on the table, removed the photographs. The Crosswind unit in 1975, weapons requisitions, mission reports, after-action summaries, set them all on the table. This is proof that Operation Brushfire existed, that operators served, that they accomplished missions, that they deserve recognition. The committee members examined the evidence, passed documents between them, asked questions about authentication, about chain of custody, about how Hollis knew the documents were genuine. Because my grandfather was meticulous, Hollis said, because he knew someday the truth would need proof, because he believed these people mattered. The chair nodded. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. This documentation will be entered into the official record. Hollis returned to his seat. His hands were shaking. Adrenaline and relief mixed together. The chair called the final witness, Lieutenant Sarah Ennis Carthage, Crosswind 7. The room went silent. Ennis stood, walked to the witness table, moved with that same controlled precision, sat, took the oath. Her voice was steady. The chair spoke carefully. Lieutenant Carthage, thank you for your willingness to testify. We understand this is difficult given the circumstances of your service and subsequent erasure from official records. For the record, can you confirm your identity and service designation? My name is Sarah Ennis Carthage. I served as Crosswind 7 in Operation Brushfire from October 1973 to February 1977. I was a sniper. I completed 42 missions, 9 confirmed eliminations, 11 probable. All enemy combatants, all in defense of American personnel. The chair continued. The committee has reviewed declassified mission reports that reference your designation. However, official personnel records list you as killed in a training accident in 1976. Can you explain this discrepancy? Ennis's expression did not change. When brushfire was terminated, operators were given two options: face congressional inquiry that would expose operational methods still in use, or accept new identities and disappear. I chose disappearance. My death was fabricated to facilitate that transition. Why come forward now? Because the men who made that choice possible are dying. Because their families deserve to know what their service meant. Because I'm tired of being a ghost. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. First sign of emotion Hollis had seen from her. The committee members conferred quietly. Then the chair spoke again. Lieutenant Carthage, this committee recognizes your service and sacrifice. We acknowledge the extraordinary circumstances under which you operated and the injustice of your erasure from official recognition. It is the recommendation of this committee that you and your fellow brushfire operators be awarded the Intelligence Star for valor in clandestine operations. The room erupted, not in chaos, in silence, complete silence. Then one person stood, one of the old men in the front row. He raised his hand in salute, crisp, military perfect. Another stood, another salute. Within 30 seconds, every veteran in the room was standing, hands raised, honoring a woman who had been dead for 50 years. Ennis remained seated, did not return the salutes, but her eyes moved across the faces, recognizing some, remembering. The committee chair stood as well. The other members followed, not saluting, but standing, showing respect through the only gesture available. The moment held, 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then Ennis stood, nodded once to the room, turned and walked out. The hearing adjourned. Hollis sat frozen, watching the veterans lower their hands, watching them sit, watching them wipe their eyes with the backs of their hands. Webb was there, sitting 3 rows ahead. He turned and looked at Hollis, nodded, understanding passing between them without words. Outside the hearing room, Hollis found Ennis standing alone in the hallway. She was looking out a window at the city below, hands clasped behind her back, military posture even now. That was brave, Hollis said. She did not turn. It was overdue. What happens now? Memorial service at Arlington, next month. They're adding names to the Brushfire Memorial. 17 of us are still alive. We'll be there. And after that? She finally looked at him. Smiled, small, genuine. After that, I stop hiding. Maybe write a book. Maybe just live quietly knowing the truth is finally recorded. Either way, I'm done being erased. Hollis extended his hand. Thank you for trusting me. Ennis shook it. Her grip was firm. Thank you for believing when it would have been easier not to. She walked away, down the hallway, into the crowd of veterans gathering near the elevators. One of them, the pilot, embraced her. Brief, respectful. Then others surrounded her, talking, remembering, honoring. Hollis returned to Tennessee the next day. The shop looked the same, but felt different, like it had crossed some threshold into new purpose. He spent the following week reorganizing the space, moved the filing cabinet from the corner to the wall behind the counter, unlocked it permanently, labeled it Historical Archive, Operation Brushfire. Customers could see it now, could ask questions, could learn. The rotary phone stayed on the wall, silent again. But Hollis no longer thought of it as decoration. It was a reminder that some connections transcend time, that some truths wait decades to surface. The photographs multiplied. The original image of the Crosswind unit was joined by newer pictures. Ennis at the congressional hearing, the rifle in the Smithsonian. A group photo from the Arlington Memorial Service showing 17 aging operators standing in formation one last time. Hollis added a new photograph to the collection. Taken at the museum dedication in March, showed Ennis standing beside the rifle display, her hand resting on the glass case, looking at the weapon that had defined 4 years of her life and 49 years of her silence. In the photograph, she was smiling. 3 months after the hearing, a young woman entered the shop, early 20s, nervous, carried a worn duffel bag. "My grandmother passed away last month," she said. "She told me if I ever needed money, I should bring this to someone who'd understand what it meant." She wrote down this address. She pulled out an old M1911 pistol, tarnished, grip worn smooth, serial number barely visible. Hollis looked at it, looked at her, saw the uncertainty in her eyes, the expectation of dismissal. He reached for the brass brush and solvent. "Let me take a look." As he cleaned the serial number, the woman watched. "Your grandfather did this too?" she asked. "Yes. And it taught me that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hidden under rust and time and silence. Sometimes you have to look carefully to find what matters." The serial emerged, letter by letter, number by number. Standard military issue, 1943. Carried through World War II based on the wear patterns. Probably saw combat in Europe or the Pacific. Not rare, not experimental, but important. "This belonged to someone who served," Hollis said. "Someone who carried it through something difficult. That makes it valuable, regardless of what collectors might pay." The woman's shoulders relaxed. "How much is it worth?" Hollis set down the brush. "To a collector, maybe $800. To you, much more. This is your family's history. Your grandmother wanted you to have it. I'd recommend keeping it. Let it remind you where you came from." She smiled, tears forming. "Thank you." After she left, Hollis stood at the counter looking at the space around him. The photographs on the walls, the archive cabinet with its documented history, the brass casing in its case, the rotary phone silent on the wall. The shop had become something his grandfather intended but never lived to see. A place where hidden stories surfaced, where dismissed things found value, where truth mattered more than convenience. At 5:47, Hollis began his closing routine. Same as the opening, but different now. He moved through the space with less arrogance, more purpose. Wiped down the display cases in horizontal strokes. Checked the security footage. Made notes in the ledger. Before leaving, he stood at the wall of photographs. Looked at the image of Ennis at the museum. At the crosswind unit in the jungle. At the memorial service at Arlington. 17 operators. 17 lives erased and then restored. 17 people who served in silence and were finally honored in light. Hollis picked up the brass casing, turned it over in his fingers. 7.62 NATO, 1974. Fired 50 years ago. Carried home. Preserved. Displayed. Physical proof that some truths survive. He set it back in its case, turned off the lights, locked the door. Outside, the Tennessee evening was settling into darkness. Stars emerging overhead, the highway quiet. The world continuing its existence around the small gun shop that had become a repository of secrets transformed into history. Hollis sat in his truck for a moment before starting the engine. Looked back at the shop, at the dark windows, at the sign that read Mercer and Sons Firearms. 3 generations, 3 purposes, supply depot, Gun shop, memorial. His phone buzzed. Message from Ennis. Saw your name in the museum credits. They listed you as historical consultant. Thought you should know the exhibit is getting 20,000 visitors a month. People want to know the stories. Thank you for making sure those stories could be told. Hollis typed a reply. It was an honor. Thank you for trusting me with the truth. He started the engine, drove home through the dark, thinking about rust-covered rifles and hidden archives and the weight of carrying secrets for 50 years. Thinking about the courage required to surface after decades of erasure. Thinking about his grandfather's careful planning and patient faith that someday the truth would matter. The next morning at 5:47, Hollis unlocked the shop. Same routine, same timing. But when he looked at the space now, he saw more than inventory and transactions. He saw responsibility. He saw purpose. He saw connection to something larger than himself. A customer arrived at 9, brought in a rifle for appraisal. It looked rough, worn, possibly worthless. Hollis did not laugh, did not dismiss. He picked it up carefully, examined it thoroughly, asked questions, listened to the story behind it. Because he had learned that value hides in unexpected places, that history lives in objects people overlook, that everyone's story deserves to be heard before judgment is made. The brass casing caught the morning light, glinted, reminded him. Some bullets travel 50 years before hitting their target. Some truths wait decades before finding their moment. Some people live entire lifetimes in shadow before stepping into light. And some gun shops in small Tennessee towns become something more than they appear, become witnesses, become archives, become proof that silence eventually breaks, and erasure eventually fails, and truth eventually surfaces. The photographs on the wall told that story, past and present integrated, hidden and revealed, ghost and human. Crosswind 7 and Sarah Ennis Carthage, the same woman, both versions real, both versions honored. Hollis stood at the counter, looked at the rifle in his hands, looked at the customer waiting for his assessment, looked at the space that had taught him to see beyond surface appearances. And he began his examination the way he now began everything, carefully, respectfully, with the understanding that what seems worthless might be priceless, that what appears broken might be whole, that what looks like ending might be beginning. The morning light filled the shop, the smell of gun oil and old wood, the photographs watching, the archive open, the truth preserved. And somewhere in that light, the memory of an elderly woman placing a rust-covered rifle on a counter and quietly changing everything. Have you ever witnessed someone receive the recognition they deserved after years of being overlooked? Share their story in the comments. And if you believe truth matters no matter how long it takes to surface, subscribe. These stories need to be told. These people need to be remembered. And silence should never be the final answer.